Thanks, Jim. Justin Stone here with EliteBaseball.tv. This week's tip of the week is going to cover when the at-bat begins. You know, so often when I do lessons this time of year, I like to have players do some self-reflection, some evaluation on how their at-bats are going. And I do so in three areas. The categories are, I ask them how they feel about their swing, the mechanical side. Number two, their timing. Are they early, late, or on time? And three, their pitch selection. And so I want to know, are players attacking balls in their hitter zones, specifically early in the count? And one of the things that struck my mind in the last couple days is a player that was telling me, and their dad confirmed, is that oftentimes they are taking the first strike. They're taking the first pitch of the at-bat. And I had him think about this for a second, because we know hitting with 2 strikes is already a very difficult task. And the batting averages tend to lower about 200 points once we get into a 2-strike count. So if right away I'm giving the first strike to the pitcher, and we'll say the ball is in the pitcher's court oftentimes in a 2-strike count, that leaves us, the hitter, with the advantage only 33% of the at-bat. So the odds are stacked against me at this point. And the point I was making to the player, you know pitchers are trying to get ahead of us with pitch one. They're not trying to nibble. And the more they get ahead of the count, the more they move to the edges of the zone, even at the youngest levels. Pitchers are smart enough to realize if I don't have to throw a ball in the middle of the plate and I can get it out, why would I throw a ball in the middle of the plate? I'm going to continue to work to the edge of the zone, or even better yet, make a hitter chase by throwing a ball out of the zone. So we have to be ready to hit pitch one. That may be the best pitch of the entire sequence. So what we're going to talk about today is how we prepare for pitch one. And it's not, to me, when does the at-bat begin? To me, it's the at-bat never ceases to end. As soon as we're preparing for the game that day, I get my eyes on the pitcher in the bullpen. And it doesn't matter what level we're talking about here, because I want to see arm slot, I want to see timing of delivery, and I want to see what is this pitcher's out pitch. Now that's going to be for older levels of baseball, but you can tell right away if a guy has a hammer in the with the breaking ball in the bullpen, or he's throwing some special pitch. Maybe he's got a split finger. You're going to see that from glove signals and action of the ball. So we can get information about the day. I was a leadoff batter. This was really important to me. I was doing a lot of my preparing for the at-bat by watching the guy in the bullpen. So I'm watching those things to get prepared for my at-bat and for the pitcher that day. And what I say, it never ceases to end, is we continue to watch the player and a pitcher in the game. I can get a lot of information about what the pitcher is doing, pitch sequences. Is the pitcher up and down in the zone? What is the strike zone like of the umpire? If we simply just watch the game. And that's hard to do for our youngest players because their attention spans aren't very great. So what I do as the coach, a youth coach, I ask my players questions on the bench. They better be able to answer those questions. So I try to point out things that are happening in the game as a coach to get the players' focus turned or directed to those cues. As we get older, we're trying to find if pitchers have tendencies of what they're doing in the glove to tip off certain pitches. But you have to watch the game with a keen eye to pick those things up. And you'll be surprised how much information you get about the game when you start watching the game with a critical eye. So that's step one. We're watching, we're observing, and we're learning. Next, we're preparing for the bat by getting in the hole or we're getting on deck. Sometimes it varies how many players can get ready for that next at-bat based on the rec league or as we get older into a real level of baseball, high school and above. I see a lot of times in the rec league that a dad will get off on the backside with some ball and a string and players are hacking away at this thing. You know, at this point, the kids are loose, right? It's 75 degrees, 85 degrees in the majority of our summer games. They don't need to go out and be twirling around with sticks and balls on a string. What they need to be doing is getting their timing set on the pitcher and focusing again on release points. The younger the players, the more common the release point is at a very similar position. As we get older, players get larger, limbs get longer, we'll see some variance in release points. So that becomes more and more important as we get down the road, picking out that window of where the ball's coming out. But with all players, the hardest thing about hitting is timing. And we want to get our timing set well before we get into the batter's box and attack in pitch one, being ready to hit pitch one. So whether I'm in the hole, whether I'm on deck, we'll show you a couple pictures here if you're watching the video of what players at the collegiate and professional level are doing during the at-bat. They are getting ready on deck and in the hole by going through visualizing the at-bat themselves with the pitcher being live. They're getting their timing set on the pitcher's release. We've said many times before that the pelvis of the player is going to gain ground on pitcher's release. So we need to rewind and find out how our unique individual load, how long it takes, so we can get the load stride process started on time in a slow, smooth tempo. How do you figure that out? Well, it's not the first two pitches of the at-bat in the batter's box. You're figuring that out when you're in the hole, when you're on deck, or visualizing it, just going through it in your mind while you're sitting on the bench 4, 5, or 6 hitters down the road. You can still visualize and get a feel for the pitcher's tempo and how that's going to match up with your own tempo. So these are very important cues. As we get older, I said we put a little more fine detail into that of what the pitcher's sequences are like. How is he pitching like batters like me? Am I a small run guy? Am I a bigger hitter in the middle of the order? How does he vary his pitch sequences for hitters like that? And then, of course, we're going to use previous knowledge of that pitcher and previous at-bats to arm us in the next at-bats. We're not going to let the pitcher get us out the same way multiple times without making an adjustment. And that's the game within the game. And why precisely I say that the at-bat never ceases to end. It's not when does it begin. So we're ready to attack pitch 1. The game is on, and we're ready to hit that first pitch of the at-bat. Until next week, this is Justin Stone. Come see us at EliteBaseball.tv, free for 48 hours. Until then, we'll see you on the field.